Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Shachar Sadeh. It is my esteemed pleasure as the director of the Faculty Engagement Program and the Resilient Cities Program at the JCRC of New York to open this exciting event today and host two wonderful professionals who will be our speaker for today, Rinat Guy and Alexis Wachowski, the Chief Innovation Officers of Tel Aviv and New York City, for a conversation about social innovation and resilient cities. Both are representing two amazing, vibrant global cities that never sleep. There are many reasons why we team Tel Aviv with New York City in a joint learning process, two global cities located at the beachfront, smart and technologically driven with a dynamic, high-tech, diverse community, inclusive, and so much more. Last 4 years, for the last 4 decades, the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York, as a local organization, has been working to create and solidify relations between New York City and Israel. But more importantly, it has been working to promote social and communal resilience in New York. It has been incubating initiatives to create leadership networks for solving common problems, has sustained diverse networks, has empowered and has been empowered by the diverse communities of the city, and finally served as a focal point for community actions in time of crisis. Our new normal of 2021 forced cities, as well as other major organizations, think and rethink their operation, get creative and get innovative. This is one of the reasons that we, the JCRC of New York, launched the Cities program with a great admiration to our local government experts and even greater will to enhance our engagement with them. And I guess there's nothing like a global crisis to boost up things. James Anderson, who heads a government innovation program at the Bloomberg Philanthropies, referred to current changes and said, "It's exactly in these moments of budget cuts, chaos, and uncertainty that city leaders need to be the most creative about how they solve their residents' most pressing. That's why we're seeing cities bolstering their innovation teams, adding technical capacity, and building their collaboration skills." So in essence, innovation is a requirement for resilience. And resilient cities are defined as cities that have the ability to absorb, recover, and prepare for future shocks, promote sustainable development, well-being, and inclusive growth. But in order to prepare for the future, an organization needs to create spaces for creativity and some degree of imaginative spirit to allow individuals in it to really envision the future and the way to tackle it with relevant, innovative. We not only need smart, resilient cities, but we need thoughtful ones. And that brings us to social innovation, which has various definitions. The one I picked up for us today is a complex process through which new products, processes, or programs are introduced, leading to a deep change in daily routines, resources streams, power relation, or values within the system affected by the innovation. Some of the examples we'll focus on today's event. We'll discuss engaging residents to solve problems, upgrading or making services work better for residents by skilling or boosting municipality employees to be innovative in the way they approach their work, and become more involved with communal work. And many questions come to mind. Innovation could be an empty word people toss around. Who doesn't want to be innovative or creative, right? But how do you ensure innovation is an integral part of an organizational structure? Could this really be the case for a huge, mostly very bureaucratic organization such a municipality? How do you not only recruit entrepreneurs, but promote intrapreneurs? And how does it all promote resilience and social cohesion? And with that, I want to quickly introduce our speaker. Dr. Alexis Wachowski serves as Deputy Chief Technology Officer for Innovation for the City of New York, and teaches on government, media, and technology at Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs. Her book, The Information Trade: How Big Tech Conquers Countries, Challenges Our Rights, and Transforms Our World, was published in 2020. Rinat Guy serves as the Chief Innovation Officer at the Municipality of Tel Aviv-Yafo, and often lectures about urban innovation at Tel Aviv University, Haifa University, and Ben-Gurion University. As CIO of Tel Aviv-Yafo Municipality, Ms. Guy directs a strategic task force in charge of positioning Tel Aviv-Yafo as Israel International Innovation City. The program will go as follows. Each of the speakers will give a short 12 to 13 minutes presentation. Then they'll challenge each other with some questions, and we'll open the floor for Q&A from the audience. If you want to ask questions, please use the chat to send those to me, and we'll open your mics later on. With that, Rinat, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Shachar, for facilitating this collaboration and bring us together. I will start by mentioning the most important fact that you need to know. Tel Aviv is a smart city and very small city, only 20 square miles. Most cities believe in separate innovation zone. We see the city as one single innovation zone, which is one of the reasons why we're known as the city with the highest density of startups in the world per capita or per square mile. Our aim is to spread innovation in every corner of our beautiful non-stop city. And with that, I will share my slide and how it all started. Okay, so 6 years ago, I was a project manager at the Tel Aviv municipality. And one day I was sitting with the CEO firm, and suddenly I asked an innocent question. How come we don't have an innovation program here? One of the VPs said, we love to innovate, but we don't have the resources. Another VP said, why bother? Why fix something that is not broken? And my boss, the head of strategy, said, Rinat, it's a waste of our time. I looked at the CEO, and when he saw the disappointment in my eyes, he challenged me. And he said, okay, Rinat, you are a project manager, so you have a new project. Go ahead and build a plan for innovation, but with no budget, no human resources, and no tools at all. And then you remind me, you're a project manager, you have to do your jobs, so you have many projects to complete. I remember that after this time, when I left the office, I thought to myself that his genuine hope was that I will go away and drop the whole thing. It was one sentence, only one sentence fly in my head. Why bother? Why fix something that is not broken? And then it hit me. I'm doing it for Itai, my youngest in the nest. This is Itai. I'm always telling him, dare, don't give up, stand for what you believe. What example am I setting to him for him if I do the opposite? I was fired up. I spent a year researching innovation, all kinds of innovation in all over the world, in a public sector, private sector, academics. And after a year, I came to the conclusion that innovation is not a project that begins and ends. Innovation is not a slogan. Innovation is a way of life. It is the way to change and improve the lives of all of us, our community, and the way we see reality. It was clear to me that in order to be an innovative city, we need innovative people. We have in the municipality 12,000 employees. That meant that we needed to turn 12,000 civil servants into creative thinking. That was my main challenges. Our civil servant, they come they come into contact on a daily basis with our residents, so they know the needs, the pen, the real pen, and they can the needs, and they can provide solutions. My main goal was to engage with every single one of our 12,000 employees to think, to speak, and to act innovation. And this is how the Itai model was born, which stand of Innovation Tel Aviv Yafo, and my son's name as well. It based on 3 pillars, the triple E: engage, empower, and expand. Let me show you how the triple E looks like. We select 35 employees from each department every 6 months. We put them through a 3-month training program. We give them innovation tools and skill set as lean startups, design thinking, presentation skills, and more. We encourage them to invest time in creative thinking for the benefit of the city's residents. We send them back to the units, to their departments, as an ambassadors or change agents. They invite the whole department to come up with creative solutions. Once a year, we celebrate the municipal innovation competition. We do it TED style. Employees present their ideas in front of the mayor, the city council, and 500 guests. 5 ideas with the highest value get a budget for a pilot implementation. Now I will show you. People often ask me out of the blue, do employees that involved in this program, do they receive a bonus or any other incentive? My answer is no, absolutely no. So what in it for them? Let me show you Talia, for example. She's working in the community department. She came up with a simple but lovely idea to build a community library of things. The idea popped her when her husband wanted to buy a drill, an expensive drill, and she thought about all the million drills in the world that they use once, maybe twice. What if we can just borrow it for a single use and return it? Because we don't really need a 3,000 shekel drill, we need a hole in the wall. So this idea won on a 3rd place in our competition, innovation competition, and more importantly, it implemented in several neighborhoods in Tel Aviv. Okay, this is the library of things. Here our mayor and our Prime Minister Shimon Peres. And this is the items that you can borrow it. And this is the feedbacks that I've got from a lot of employees. And this motivates me to believe in this process. Yoram, for example, is from the engineering. He comes in contact with the residents on a daily basis. Some of them have difficulty accessing city hall services due to all kind of limitation, disability, immobility, elderly. And so Yoram told to his team, if they cannot come to us, we will go to them. He and his team took a van and turned it into a mobile municipal office, a city on a wheel, limited resources, but a huge impact. As you can see, this is the van. I was surprised when the mayor of Beverly Hills 2 years ago came to Israel to hear about our Itai model. And I was honored, I had the honor to travel to Beverly Hills to present this model. We found our model very effective, successful, and scalable. Not only we gather the municipal, the ambassador, the employees, but also students and teachers, residents, and academics. We present them the challenges of the city, and they come up with a creative solution from different angles. Even my son Itai, when his teacher asked him why his name is after Itai, he told her when he was in the first class, Innovation, Tel Aviv, Yafo. And he's already claiming, by the way, he's already claiming for royalties. All modesty, we won on the second place in the competition in European. And after 6 years, I can say that it's all about people. I found myself inspired over and over by something that Job said. He said that it doesn't make sense to hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. So this is the attitude. We treat the employees as stars, as entrepreneurship. And I want to ask you, try to feel what would it look like if we started routinely evaluating and measuring employees for innovative thinking, chutzpah for daring. I can tell you that this employee feels very useful and valued. And the gain is it's a win-win situation. I would like to leave you with Matt Ridley quote. So innovation happens when ideas have sex. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rina, so much. And now we'll turn to Alexis, please.
Thank you so much. And Rinat, that was a fabulous presentation. And I'm so inspired by the model. I'm looking forward to learning more about it. So I'm going to share my screen and talk a little bit about innovation in New York City. So the first thing that I will say is that social innovation, as Shahar described earlier, is a process that involves many different partners and stakeholders. And I think in government, we're used to thinking of things in a linear kind of fashion. Like you come up with a great idea, you check out if the idea exists already, you see if you can get buy-in for the idea, and hopefully you can implement it. If not, you're just out of luck. But I want to talk about 2 examples that we've instituted in New York City that take a different approach and are much more responsive to the needs of the city. So we're going to talk about the appetite that we've seen in New York City to help out from outside of government, and also the appetite within government to be more innovative and entrepreneurial. So we're going to talk about innovation within government with this NYCX Innovation Fellows program, and within communities with our Collabs program. So for some context, at the beginning of the pandemic last year, there was this massive shortage of PPE, of N95 masks in particular. So we started finding different ways to get these resources. We took donations, We were purchasing them, and we were also encouraging people to manufacture PPE. But the problem is that different agencies were doing this in silos. They were putting up different web pages and collecting the data into different fields and inputs. And so anyone that's worked in a large organization can see that having your data look like this is a disaster, because you can't compare or collate what kind of information that you're working with. So we knew we had a lot of information. We knew we were getting a lot of good input and resources and getting the supplies we needed, but we didn't have a good sense of how it all looked from a bird's eye view. And furthermore, the data was housed across 13 separate agencies within city government. Now, in the middle of this pandemic, in the middle of this crisis, with very little time and very little visibility on what was going to be, what the future looked like, we said we have to fix this problem and we have to fix it now. We have a very small innovation team, so we said we're going to need some help. And so we started to look around to see who in the community could help us. So this organization called the US Digital Response was created in March of 2020, specifically to help governments deal with technology problems. They had 5,000 volunteers sign up within the first few weeks, 1,000 experts in user design and research, project management, and data science. So these were people who saw the pandemic hurting governments, hurting their communities, and wanted to help. And I think that one of the keys to social innovation is figuring out how to make that connection between the civic tech communities and the people inside government who can leverage that assistance. And we also had this rare window of virtual work. So for the first time ever, New York City was operating virtually completely. And we knew that that would continue for some time. So we didn't have to worry about where are we going to put people in the office. We could just work virtually and get things done. So we launched a program called the NYCX Innovation Fellows. This is a screen capture of one of our team meetings. We had 2 cohorts come in for 10-week sprints with 3 teams each working with agency partners for a total of 29 technology volunteers. And one of the goals for this was not just to solve the immediate problem, for instance, to figure out how to create a dashboard for all of our PPE data or do other kinds of crisis response work, but we wanted to show government what it was like to work with technologists who were experts in their field. We wanted to introduce culture change about digital government and digital transformation by working in this new kind of way with these sprints. So we did 6 projects in 10 weeks. One was working with the Office of Criminal Justice and the Prevention of Hate Crimes to create what we called the anti-bias dashboard. We created a map to collate 18 agencies worth of assets for Universal Broadband Initiative. We worked with the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs to use machine learning to create a translation program so that when you updated one document on a Google Drive, for instance, it would update all the translated versions of that same document. We worked with the Department of Finance. Everyone has to pay the city taxes or for parking tickets or other kinds of for violations, permits, and we recreated the payment portal so this would be a more streamlined process. We have a number of small businesses in the New York City area that are run by minority and women entrepreneurs, but it was very difficult to find out where they were. So we recreated a directory that would be more efficient to find minority and women-owned businesses to be hired for contracts for the city. And for the Department of the Aging, we worked on creating a service finder so that older adults would not feel so isolated. So the point for all of these projects, though, was really about creating an opportunity to introduce new ways of working to city agencies while also providing them a tangible product that they could get benefit from. And we wanted to introduce this iterative process, which was new to a lot of people working in city agencies. This is sort of maybe 5 years back from where Renat has been in her development. We are still at the stage where we're introducing this concept of iterating on ideas, not just having a giant contract that you see the value at the end, but we wanted to have an iterative process where people could see what an alpha product looked like and a beta product before going live. And then we found out from other cities who heard what we were doing that there was this great appetite to set up their own Innovation Fellows program. So we created a guide, a sort of do-it-yourself Innovation Fellows program guide, how to set up your own program like this in your government. And we're now sharing this with cities around the world so that they can leverage that connection between the tech sector and their agency partners. So this is how we're innovating inside government right now. And this came about because of a crisis, but because we were able to react quickly and connect with the community who was so eager to help out, we were able to find some success. Now I want to talk about one other program called the NYCX Collabs, which is more focused on community engagement. So people who are living in the city, in the neighborhoods, the citizens of our city. So I'm going to start with this example in Brownsville, New York City, which is a neighborhood in Brooklyn. So there was a lot of problems in Brownsville. They had a tremendous waste problem, so trash piles up in streets. There was a lot of businesses that had been closed and people were afraid to open new businesses. It was a very high crime neighborhood. This is just in screen capture of reporting of assaults and other kinds of crimes happening in this very small neighborhood. And there was a huge incarceration problem. So in terms of the entire population of New York City who were being admitted to prison, $40 million a year were spent incarcerating just people from this tiny 2-mile square district in Brooklyn. This is a heavily policed, heavily surveilled, and seriously troubled neighborhood that we wanted to engage with to find out how can we use technology and innovation to address some of your concerns. This is a picture of Brownsville at night, and you'll notice it's pretty dark. And so we knew that there were crime issues, for instance, in Brownsville, but we were really surprised to hear from the community members we engaged with, what they wanted to focus on wasn't more surveillance, it was lighting. They wanted to talk about feeling safe at night, both by having increased lighting, but also having a sense that their community was safe to walk through in the evening, where they could be out in the streets and engaging with each other. So we set up a challenge called the Safe and Thriving Nighttime Corridors, where we offered anybody who wanted to, any technology company or even individuals in the community, we would offer awards up to $20,000 per team to propose solutions for this issue of safety at night. And then we would pilot test the solution. So one of the solutions that already existed was surveillance cameras. But this is, again, as I mentioned earlier, a neighborhood that already feels pretty heavily surveilled. So this is not something the community welcomed. And it was also very cost ineffective. So there are 17 public housing projects with 21,000 people in Brownsville, Brooklyn, and it would have cost over $700,000 just to put one camera in each of these developments. So this was not the way to go. This is not what the community wanted, and it was going to be an expensive solution. So we started partnering with local organizations. We started with the Brownsville Community Justice Center and asking them what kinds of ideas they had, what kinds of priorities were important to them. We also partnered with other agencies across the city and with universities. CUSP is a program that runs out of New York University. And we created something called the Brownsville Tech Board, where we got local technologists together to work on reviewing applications with us. So one of the solutions that was proposed that and eventually ended up being implemented was taking one of the streets that was very poorly trafficked and very dark at night and transforming it into a pedestrian corridor that was going to be inviting to the community. So there was a community competition to have a mural design that was painted directly onto the streets. There were street fairs organized to get people out into this community plaza. And it was lit up so that it would be safe at night. And there would be a place for people to go and to gather together and feel comfortable and proud about their community. But there was one additional component that they wanted to introduce, which was, what about engaging the young people in this community who may be living in these housing projects and feel disaffected and disassociated with the rest of the community? So what we did was we partnered with an organization that trained teenagers on how to create multimedia video content. And we installed video projectors in the plazas to project whatever the youth had created onto the walls of the buildings. And this is what it ended up looking like. So this was something that people could walk through and see, hey, my nephew made this, or my daughter helped contribute to this. And it was a sense that not only was it brighter, literally brighter with lighting, but it was also something that they could feel pride in their community for having had this kind of community-based response. And you'll see it's pretty low tech. It's video projectors and lights, but it ended up being exactly the kind of solution the community needed because it was based on their desires, not something that the government imposed upon them. So some closing thoughts on our role in government innovation. This is one of my favorite quotes, that a ship is safe in harbor, but that is not what ships are for. Government is very risk averse in general and doesn't like to stick its neck out and try new things. As Renat had pointed out in her early part of her presentation, why fix something that's not broken? But we have to serve our citizens, and to serve our citizens means getting out into the community, really listening to what their needs are and having them involved in the process of finding creative solutions that work for them. Thank you very much. I look forward to our discussion.
Thank you, Alexis. This was great. I invite both of you to ask each other questions. So Alexis, if you want to start and ask Rinat something about her work or the presentation or anything else.
Absolutely. So I would love to hear more about the startups that you like to work with in your community. What are you looking for in the startups that you engage with?
Okay, that's very good questions. Thank you, Alexis, and you had a great presentation. In recent years, Tel Aviv has emerged as one of the world's leaders in technology and innovation, and has been named Startup City of the Startups Nation. In Tel Aviv, we have 2,000 startups, companies at any given moment. Many startups cannot gain government support. They are not mature or big enough. The bureaucracy to funding is too complicated, time-consuming, and too expensive for a seed startup. The municipality of Tel Aviv plays a significant role in supporting those startups, and more specifically, startups dealing with quality of life related initiative. We're constantly on the lookout for groundbreaking ideas to meet the growing challenges with new solutions. We created a startup committee with bi-weekly meeting with startups. We have to hear them, to hear their needs and help them wherever we can. Some of them ask for municipal co-working spaces. Some of them want a database or experts or tax relief. But they all want to ask for a tax-free. We launched a smart city lab. It's like a mini city called the City Zone. Startups can test their solution proof of concept. The city is adopting some really effective solution from this. And we plan to open our first agro-innovation lab in an agriculture plot of 70 dunams. It's 17 acres. In the center of Tel Aviv metropolis. The municipality really is helping startups blossom. But we're looking for a solution for our city's residents to improve our life. Thank you, Alexis. So I would like to ask you, what is New York City doing to encourage more innovative culture within government agencies?
Thank you so much for your response, and thank you for your question. So this is something that you addressed as well in your presentation, is that it's not enough to say that innovation will happen in this tiny unit over here somewhere in a building out in the outer boroughs. We need all of our officials and our employees to be thinking creatively and thinking of themselves as innovators. So we are also part of the way that we're introducing this kind of new culture is having them agency officials partner with us through the NYCX Innovation Fellows program. So as I showed in the presentation, for the 6 projects that we completed, that was working with 6 agencies. And through that process, they got to feel like they were being really part of something like a startup culture. Like they did a sprint, and it was using agile methodologies, and it was just not the way that we usually do our work. And we found that everyone that was participating in those projects had an influence on the other people that they worked with. So when we had our final demo, even though we only worked with maybe 10 to 12 people directly, we had over 150 people come to our final demo because people were so curious to learn about what these projects were and how they could get involved in the program. So that's one way we're doing it. And the next thing that we're doing is we're trying to think about ways that we can recognize the creative solutions at all levels of government that are already occurring that we may not know about. New York City government is pretty massive. We have over 300,000 employees. So we are thinking of launching an initiative to create a kind of award and recognition program for people at different stages of government and in different areas for the new creative and original approaches and technology-based approaches that they're using in their work. So these are some of the things that we're trying.
Thank you very much, Alexis. Can I ask you? Okay.
Go ahead, Rina. Go ahead.
You want to ask me, or I
can ask you. Yeah, I have one more question for you.
Okay.
So we talk a lot about changing at the systems level. You know, it's not enough to just make little changes. Can you talk about how you've instituted sort of systematic change in Tel Aviv?
Okay, sure. One initiative we implemented was in the academic environment with the University of Tel Aviv. 2 years ago, we opened the first MBA program. We brought together students, researchers, professors, residents, together with the municipal innovation ambassadors to address 4 urban challenges. One of the challenges was reducing the urban heat island phenomena within the program frame of one semester. They learned, profiled, researched the subject. They learned to speak the same language. And the winning solution was placing public fountains with surrounding sitting shaded with solar panel trees, an idea we would have never thought of before. We scaled the concept to high school with the Ministry of Education. We opened a Bagrut major, 5-unit social entrepreneurship, which is the Israeli matriculation system. It was amazing to see how these young Zoomers came up with solutions from completely fresh angles. This is the edge of social diversity and entrepreneurship, the gain from harnessing the potential of the entire ecosystem is phenomenal. That's it. And I would like to ask you another question. What is New York City doing to encourage innovation collaborations with the broader New York City tech sector?
Yeah, this is a great question because we have a really fast growing tech sector in New York City. All of the major tech companies have presences, and then we have a thriving startup ecosystem as well. And we want to figure out the best ways to partner with them, not only to help them succeed as businesses, but to make sure that their technologies work for all New Yorkers. So this is one thing we think a lot about in government is there are a lot of different kinds of organizations that are trying to do good in this world, but only government is responsible for being fair. So you can make a tech product that works for just this group of people over here, but with government services, it has to serve all citizens. So we're trying to partner with the tech sector to help them expand their ideas of access and inclusivity to make sure that whatever they're developing keeps the broader population in mind and is not segmented just to the very rich or the very tech savvy. So this is one of the things that we're really excited to explore. And we find that when we talk with the tech sector about this idea of equity and fairness and inclusivity, they're very excited about it. It's generally something that they've wanted to think about or wanted to do, but we're very focused maybe on just getting their MVP up and out the door. So we're trying to help bring them up to that next level where they're thinking more broadly about the equity of the population they're serving.
Thank you. It's very, it's fresh, and I would love to listen and to hear more about it. Yes, Shahar?
We have questions from the audience. So one question that just came in from Bob Kaplan, who is part of the JCRC, is asking how organizations like JCRC that have a community building agenda, yet no direct services, partner with the city in these efforts.
Renat, do you want to go first or?
You can go first.
Okay. So one of the things that we feel really grateful for are our community organization partners, because there's nobody who knows better the problems that people face than the people who are working closest with citizens on the ground. So having partners like JCRC work with us to help us listen and learn, to be sort of an amplification platform for community needs and concerns is tremendously valuable to us. It's a form of user research that we don't get to do normally with a very small team. So we look to our community organization partners as a way to keep ourselves honest and keep ourselves educated about what are the real concerns of the citizens and what are the variables that we need to take into account. So that example I showed in Brownsville about safety at night, a very bureaucratic approach might be put more surveillance cameras in, but that was the last thing the community wanted. And it was only through working with community-based organizations that we learned that nuance about how they didn't want to feel more surveilled, they just wanted to feel safer. So the community organizations are key to helping government have these kinds of insights.
Thank you. So the collective creative innovative thinking is the optimal inclusive approach to improving the quality of urban living and creating cohesive, resilient urban community and society. This is how new solutions, services, and products are born. The private sector has been doing it for a long time. We in Tel Aviv believe that the public sector must learn and adapt practices from the private sector. After 5 years of implementing the Itai model in Tel Aviv, we saw how ecosystem, think tanks, and group intelligence is a fantastic tool and valuable asset for every local authority to become a resilient, autonomous capacity. Bringing all Tel Aviv's stakeholders together to engage in collective mind work, brainstorming, to address common challenge, produce some really clever, feasible solutions. solutions which we would have never thought of with the existing way of operation. Because innovation to me is about creating value by doing things differently and acting differently. And I believe it is our job as a public service managers to provide platform and encourage creative, proactive thinking and speaking up. And I think that Itai did just that. In Tel Aviv municipality, we understand that we can drive innovation only by empowering, we can drive innovation only by empowering all stakeholders and giving them a voice. And by hearing their voice, employees, residents, businesses, students, academics, we made a strategic decision to foster, grow, and embed the entrepreneurship mindset within the organization culture. Because we all face common challenges in the city, but every group experienced these challenges differently in day-to-day. So each group will give solutions from a personal experience standpoint. This is my answer. Thank you.
This is great. Thank you. Another question for Alexis is about how did last year race-related demonstration change or impacted your plans or your approach or values towards innovation?
It's an excellent question, and it actually something that we took very seriously, and we looked inward and decided to make our efforts to be inclusive much more explicit and front of mind. So one of the first things we did was we expanded just the name of our team from the innovation team to the inclusive innovation team. And even though a name change is not significant in itself, it oriented us to think every day, how do we be more inclusive? How do we make sure that how do we make sure technology works for all New Yorkers, especially those who are from communities of color, who have been discriminated against, who have been oppressed. And we want to make sure that we are reaching out to the hardest to reach and the hardest to serve, because they've been pushed back for generations. So something that we started thinking about very intentionally over the summer, and we are moving through various programs to ensure that we do more direct community engagement with communities of color and disadvantaged communities, so that when we hear about people's experience with technology, it's not just the tech savvy or the people who are sort of floating to the top, but people who could benefit really the most from it, and also who have been historically left out. So we've been trying to be very intentional about including those groups in our work.
Another question that was referred by Bethany Horowitz to Alexis, but could actually go to both. And I see you, Bethany. Do you want to ask your question? You can unmute yourself now, I think.
Sure. Hi. It's so great to see you all, and thanks for these really terrific and inspiring talks. I'm a New York City-based person, and I'm thinking about the fact that the sheer scale in New York City is so different from Tel Aviv. New York City has like 8.2 million people, and Tel Aviv has under 500,000. And then there's the geography too. So it's very different. And what I heard in Rinat's presentation was focusing on individuals and getting sort of a responsiveness, a grassroots kind of relationship to come into being. And what I heard in Alexis's talk was, the example of Brownsville is one community, and that's great to get that kind of thing. But when I think about this idea of trying to reach all stakeholders, which is what Rinat was talking about. It's awfully hard to do that in New York City. And so I guess I'm just, first of all, I just wanted to make sure that's in front of us because these aren't comparable in some ways. And then when I think about in the era of the pandemic, like I'm walking a lot, I'm seeing rodents. I can call it into 311 and report, you know, but are there ways that here we have this tech solutions that you're mainly, that's the other thing is that you guys are both focusing on sort of, what is that called? Low hanging fruit through technology. But some of the big problems, whether it's something like that I experience as one person walking in my neighborhood or thinking about the school system or the transportation system, these are really big things. I just wonder, I guess my question is specifically to Alexis, but we're not, certainly it does translate in a different way to Tel Aviv. How does this innovation engine, which I really think is important, how can it start to also infuse these bigger kinds of questions? And I mean, that's anyway, that's the question.
No, thank you, Bethany.
Thank you so much.
So one of the things I would say is this is actually borrowing from Rinat's playbook, is to empower the city agency employees to be innovators themselves, to be ambassadors for innovation. So right now we're working with, we started with our NYCX Innovation Fellows program with small mayor's offices. And then we moved up the ladder to like the Department of Finance, which takes in most of the city's revenue, billions of dollars a year. And so we're hoping that as we grow the program, we will start working with those big partners like the Department of Education and Department of Social Services, Department of Sanitation, for instance, so that we can embed innovators into their organizations as well and start to have champions working within, because those people who've been working in those fields are going to have the most creative and most nuanced ideas about how to solve their problems. So I think this idea that Rinat introduced about sort of planting seeds in organizations and agencies and having that take on this kind of network effect is the best way we have to spread innovation at scale in New York City.
Rinat, last comments?
Okay, I have a minute, so I will say that today it is clearly understand that city cannot become a smart city without its resident. The residents needs to participate in the process for the future, and that for the city. They have to be a responsibility. And our job is just to let them, to provide them, to give them the platform. So thank you very much. Thank you, Shahar. Thank you, Alexis. Thank you for everybody.
Well, thank you so much.
All right. So with that, we'll conclude this session. Thank you to both Rinat and Alexis for participating and sharing your thoughts and experience. This was very insightful. We'll have more events of the JCRC Resilient Cities, and everyone here, of course, will be invited. Share any questions or any comments that you have with me, with us. We are very, very, honestly, very we'll be very happy to hear your thoughts and comments. And I want to wish Chag Sameach to everyone who is celebrating, and a happy Passover or Easter to those who are celebrating. And we'll meet you in our next episode of Resilient Cities program. Thank you so much.